A very important challenge is learning to collaborate, learning to see how to build team. That anything that you do in this field, in this interest to actually go beyond your boundaries, you cannot do it alone. You have to be very clear that you need to build a team and you need to collaborate with other institutions. And in the process of learning to collaborate, which is a big word, you have to actually question and do a lot of re-engineering of your own concepts and your own perceptions.
Today's guest is Dr. Francisco Lamus, physician, pediatrician, public health scholar, and community health leader at the Center for Community Health Studies at Universidad de La Sabana. For more than 2 decades, he has built bridges between research, education, and social innovation through programs like Healthy Schools, Healthy Environments, and Rural Health for Peace, showing how socially accountable health training can move from the university into communities and back again.
But I think the most valuable thing was to actually see that what we were doing was an interest that goes beyond our own borders, our own frontiers. It's actually a critical issue worldwide to see how training health professionals is socially accountable. And accountability is a very important concept that has no specific translation in Spanish, because it's...
Behind every discovery, there's a story. Behind every research, there's a scientific breakthrough. And behind all of this, there are leaders who challenge the limits. In a constantly changing world, bringing knowledge closer to reality is more important than ever. Welcome to Field Notes of a Scientific Leader, the logbooks of those who are changing the world. Well, Dr. Lamus, I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. Thank you for joining us. To begin with, I would like to ask you if you can tell us a bit of what inspired you to choose a career that combines health and a lot of social impact. How has been your journey? How has that developed?
Okay, well, hello, Alejandra. Thank you for the invitation. Well, I think that I was inclined to go into medicine because of my family. I come from a family of physicians. And in an important way, I think the influence of my father as an internal medicine practitioner, and but mostly as a family doctor. He was a family doctor. I saw the value of medicine as a human a human profession, as a profession of the humanities, and which I think is a very important aspect of medicine and how it can influence social cohesion and communities. And I think that was a very important aspect of the perspective that I had in the process of becoming a doctor, later as a pediatrician, and how it was a critical aspect of influencing society was being aware of the inequities that we find in society, and how many of them can be actually influenced quite easily if there was more awareness of the inequities that we have, especially in countries like Colombia, and how that required sort of a new approach within our own environment to the way of practicing medicine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, we both work at University of La Sabana. We know this is a university that has a very strong focus on social impact, on community engagement. I would like to ask you if you can maybe share with us some of the initiatives that you have developed in your journey here at La Sabana. And how do you see this? Well, of course, I'm referring to social innovation initiatives. And how do you see, or do you see a connection to translational science and, the whole idea of connecting research to community engagement?
Okay. Well, I think that the Universidad de La Sabana has been an ideal place to innovate in the process of actually doing the displaying the integral uh, um, um, the integrality of university action into society through teaching, research, and service. Uh, and it allows, I think our group was one of the pioneers in taking the university out of the campus into community settings, and there we were we found a very nice opportunity to connect with critical issues of community problems that surround our university in municipalities that are in the northern bound of Bogota, and uh, uh, and we found like a niche that was very interesting to actually take medical students in family and community medicine to working problems that were relevant community health problems of schools, and that allowed us to actually do an approach that at that point was being the leader of that approach was PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, that was the Healthy Schools Initiative. That's all within the context of healthy cities and health promotion. And it allowed us to actually take students in their undergraduate program to connect with the determinants of health in sort of protected environments and have an action research approach where they developed specific projects around a specific health topic. And that we developed it through like at least 12 years. And then we started working with other communities. In that process, also part of the problems that we found was in the earlier years. We started using one of another PAHO's initiatives that was the IMCI, Integral Management of Childhood Illnesses. And then we found an opportunity to work with the different grants that were being offered by the government of Cundinamarca. That's the state where we're located in Colombia. And we worked some initiatives with them and with the city of Bogota, and that allowed us to actually have financial resources to start approaching translational research. So how could we actually implement the IMCI initiative in context where preventable diseases in early childhood were needed to be solved. And so we started developing different alternatives in training health professionals with the IMCI initiative, training community members, and improving institutional processes so children could be better treated with in those preventable diseases. That later on, well, actually, we found that concept of translational research further on, because in the turn of the millennium, um, preventable diseases continue to be a very important issue in Colombian epidemiology, especially, well, outside of the bigger cities. But as time passed, we started seeing that, for example, undernourished children was less of an important issue in Colombia, and we started to see overweight and obesity as a critical aspect, and we started to see that the epidemiology was changing, and we started also to notice that it was the polarization of the epidemiology was moving into chronic diseases, and new issues became part of the agenda. And it was no longer the priority in the areas surrounding us was no longer an issue of survival, but it was an issue of having children acquiring their potential. So we participated in another important grant proposal with the Ministry of Science at that time, and we worked in what we said like equitable initiative of initiation of life, and that was a very important project for us to actually connect this to understand finally what the translational concept was all about, and how a lot of what was being learned or was already known in neurosciences, how could that be applicable to the day-to-day care caregiving of care provision of children that were being raised by their parents and by the communities. So we understood very interesting things like how in this approach to translational research, for example, communication becomes a critical issue. How translating what you already know in science can be actually understood in day-to-day activities by mothers and fathers raising their kids. And we started to actually approach communities, understanding how they were raising their kids, what were their practices. We learned a lot of qualitative research that wasn't our we were strength at that time, and we started to actually see the power of qualitative research to understand the needs of people, to understand what was being done, and how could science influence those practices, and what were the messages that had to be delivered, and how that could that dialogue between knowledge and cultural practices required bridges and and messages that could actually start triggering changes in those practices. That also led, for example, to propose a master's program here in the university together with the Faculty of Education and the Faculty of Psychology. And so the Faculty of Education, with the collaboration of Psychology, Education, and the Family Institute, we have nowadays the Early Childhood Development Master's Program that has been approaching teachers, educators of different parts of the country. We've been with that. We've had master students from La Guajira, from a lot of here of the center of the country, and I think it's a very nice example of how how reading the environment and reading the epidemiology and understanding what's happening in those communities that surround you can take to actually actions that build the capacity to actually respond to society's needs.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating because you've actually managed through these initiatives and your approach to integrate, like in the whole sense, because you integrate research methodologies, research approach with education, because you have students, involved in all these initiatives, but you're also integrating different segments of society. You're moving beyond academia to involve, of course, communities, but also governmental actors. Of course, mobilizing resources, but also doing, this impact in the best way possible, which is, sort of going through public policy. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like a very long journey, and I'm pretty sure you've faced also challenges along the way. Can you maybe share with us some of those like big challenges you had to overcome to be able to develop these projects?
Yeah, I think that on the process, I think there's no clear way. So you have to learn on the road. And I think a very important challenge is learning to collaborate. Learning to see who are how to build team. That anything that you do in this field, in this interest to actually go beyond your boundaries, you cannot do it alone. You have to be very clear that you need to build a team and you need to collaborate with other institutions. And in the process of learning to collaborate, which is a big word, you have to actually question and do a lot of re-engineering of your own concepts and your own perceptions. So you have to see that you have to learn to listen, to observe what's the perspectives what's the perspective of other stakeholders. You have to learn the concept of stakeholders and how important it is to handle that and to deal with the power structures that are out there, and you have to acknowledge them and to learn to work with them in order to actually put together and actually allow your initiatives to move forward in ways that change, that they are not necessarily that they don't have necessarily the structure that they have originally in your mind, but they start to change as different actors and they improve. Actually, if they move forward, it's because they have the important feedback and and a lot of value that's added by those other stakeholders, and that's what makes them applicable, I would say.
Thank you. So you mentioned, of course, being a key aspect, collaboration, team building, as also a challenge because it's not easy to do that, right? I would like us to focus now on the importance of international collaboration and how does international engagement also support these types of initiatives, which one might think they are pretty local. You're working with your communities around the university. What is the role of international engagement? And I want to, of course, focus on your current position as chairman.
That was formerly,
Oh,
not
okay,
no
okay.
current.
So you were chairman of the network,
The
which
network
is
towards Unity
yeah,
for Health. Yeah.
towards Unity for Health, which is a network and organization that aims at improving community health through education, healthcare services, many other things. You've been definitely a global leader in terms of, mobilizing professionals and practitioners around health. So I wanted to ask you about that connection because initially one would say, okay, this sounds like a lot of local impact. How do you bridge those two?
Okay. Well, the network towards Unity for Health is a very interesting organization, and it was key in our development as a team, an academic group and an academic community. It's actually a community of academicians and community practitioners, health community practitioners that has a worldwide action. It started like in the early 70s, and curiously, the university, when our university, Universidad de La Sabana, when the Faculty of Medicine was founded, was part of an early participant in that process, but that affiliation sort of was forgotten for a couple of years. And when I arrived to the department of what is now Family Medicine and Public Health, we received some invitation to actually and we started to explore what was going on there. And we started to actually take our projects that we developed with students in school communities around in our area of influence, and we started to see that they were being valued and that we received a lot of valuable feedback. We had the opportunity to actually take students to different parts of the world to have a lot of interaction with students and professors from other universities around the world. And we made that part of our annual cycle. So once a year, we knew that we had the conference in any part of the world that we would present our works. We would take those students that had made their projects in the former years, and that became a very interesting process for us as a team, for the School of Medicine as well. Actually, in 2008, we were the hosts of the conference here in Chia in Colombia. And we our first participation in the administrative part of the organization was through students. We had students that were the chairmen of the student network organization, and we were very active as well as part of the Latin American representatives of the organization. And later on, because of the change of generations, I had the opportunity to be chairman for a couple of years of the network. But I think the most valuable thing was to actually see that what we were doing was actually that's an interest that goes beyond our own borders, our own frontiers. It's actually a critical issue worldwide to see how training health professionals is socially accountable. And accountability is a very important concept has no specific translation in Spanish, because it's not just we have social responsibility, but accountability is also being aware that you have to be willing to give all the responses to when you are expected to be accountable. So the whole concept of social accountability continues to be a very important aspect for us as a team, and it has also permeated our most recent curricular reform. How can we actually make our faculty of medicine more socially accountable to the different communities that we serve, to the students in the undergraduate and graduate programs, and how that can actually permeate our own system within. Well, the network has also been very important in the process of connecting our newest action research projects. Our flag project now is rural health, and it was through the network, through the connections that we had in the network, that we had Professor Roger Strasser that once called us, once the peace agreement was signed in Colombia in 2016, 2017, Dr. Strasser called me and he said, Francisco, would you be interested in, and your group would be interested in collaborating with the Norwegian, the Arctic University of Norway in sort of moving forward a project that can actually strengthen the peace agreement through primary healthcare, a primary healthcare initiative in some municipalities. So we started, I said obviously that we were interested, and we started that collaboration. We've been working with the Arctic University of Norway, with Dr. Roger Strasser, that was the founding dean of North Ontario School of Medicine. That's sort of the icon in rural health, and for almost 6 years now. And we continue to develop this project in two municipalities of a of a department that's towards the south of Cundinamarca. That's the department of Tolima, where we have also included students in undergraduate students and masters in public health students. And we have a very important engagement with communities, trying to understand in a better way what's happening at the community level in the health workforce and in institutions to actually try to see how rural health can be improved in these municipalities and hopefully develop instruments, methodologies, and that can better serve rural health in other places of Colombia.
Thank you, Dr. Lamus. It's amazing how the network has also contributed so much to the student journey, to the education of your students as well, by, of course, building leadership skills, but also enabling them to create, contacts for their future as practitioners or researchers. I start to notice like a virtuous circle. You start from research outputs, you gather all these information from frameworks, from things that you see are natural from the academic environment, then you start using them, applying them to work with communities. I would like to close that circle and focus a little bit more on that student journey, and how do you see them, also using that impact, that social engagement to towards their own education journey. Can you share with me a little bit more about that?
Oh, certainly. I think that using one famous phrase that says, I do think that has a lot of thinking global and acting local, And I think that we do have that experience once and again with students, with those that actually travel all the process from going to a community, identifying a topic that's relevant to the people, connecting with it, and developing what we have done an adaptation of the Kansas University Community Toolbox that we call it the community health cycle. So you build a connection with the community, you build trust, then you do the dialogues and all the conversations that lead to identifying a problem. You actually do all the methodologies that you need to actually structure a project that's developed through a semester, and then you collect the information that actually provides what has happened with that topic that has been worked upon with the students and with the community members. And then the community starts to move towards a healthy environment in the process of developing these projects. But students also have to actually present their finalized projects, and many of them have been presented in different academic scenarios, in conferences. We have also had many of them written as papers. That has been an interesting challenge. And that actually has this, you have all the action of a university in that virtuous cycle, as you name it. And I think that's very, very rewarding to see how it doesn't we say that's like a three ethical imperatives. Students have to learn something. Well, all of us who participate in any of those projects, we learn something. The communities have some kind of improvement, and if the projects go to that level that can be reported, then in other places can read whatever was written as an academic paper that can actually learn from what was that experience of the students and the communities.
That resonates a lot with the idea of translational science as well. It is, this whole journey of knowledge in a way. Well, I would like to close this interview with a look to the future. Looking ahead, what do you think is going to be that legacy that the university is going to leave to communities, to society through social innovation projects as the ones you and your students lead?
Well, I think that there's different challenges that you start to acknowledge when you start to have gray hair, and it's the challenge of succession. Who leads what's been has been built and what the institution has learned in the process. And I think an important value is having persons that have are part of the team. Many of them already have their doctoral degrees. They are part of the teams. They lead our research group. They lead our programs. And I think it's part of the responsibility within is to actually continue. We have many of our professors nowadays were undergraduate students of ours in their third year of medical school, and now they are already they have their graduate degrees, and they continue to change, adaptation to change without losing the core of what has been learned. And I think another important challenge is how this can actually permeate other universities. And that's something very interesting that's happening currently, because an important ally now in our Rural for Peace project, Health for Peace project in Tolima is Universidad del Tolima. So the University of Tolima has been a key player in this process, and I think there's been a lot of translation as well of capacities and capacity building to the group at Universidad del Tolima. I think that has been a very important process. So it's not just a question of learning within, but also how you can collaborate with other academic institutions in your environment. And that's a challenge, and that's an important challenge of Colombian universities as a whole.
That's so interesting. From this, I take away the idea that our legacy is, in those people that want to continue leading. So the idea of leadership and, the skills that you build for others to feel empowered to lead these initiatives is so important. And also our partners, how do we as an institution also transfer this idea of leading these types of initiatives to other partner institutions. So this is it's been great as always. I thank you so much for your time, and I hope we get to talk again soon. Thank you, Dr. Lamus.
Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you very much.
Francisco Lamus leaves us with a powerful lesson. Real impact begins when health education becomes socially accountable. It means listening before acting, building trust with communities, learning to collaborate across institutions, and accepting that meaningful initiatives change shape as more voices strengthen them. His work reminds us that translational science is not only about moving knowledge into practice, but about creating dialogue between evidence, culture, and lived experiences. And in that process, leadership is also legacy, building teams, empowering students, and preparing others to continue the work. You just listened to the field notes of Dr. Francisco Lamus.
Este podcast es producido por Medianoche Media.